has a limitation that the expressions that extend to propaganda for war, incitement to violence, hate speech, advocacy of hatred, that cannot be protected speech. Now, the other very important point, which I want to put before the Senate, sometime in February 2017, the Deputy President traveled to London. And he went to a hospital in London where his brother was admitted in ICU. When he arrived the next day, he prevailed upon his brother to execute a will. That was on the 17th of February, 2017. In that trip, there is no evidence at all that he tried to talk to doctors or physicians who are looking after his own brother. After this visit, he walked away. And 7 days later...
Mr. Speaker, I rise to raise an objection.
Can you proceed?
Mr. Speaker, we owe the Deputy President very elementary decency. We owe it to the Deputy President to be basically decent in these proceedings. I want to know whether counsel at the bar, one, can adduce this kind of evidence that is not contained in any evidentiary material before the Senate. I want to know which ground in the 11 grounds in the impeachment motion is this evidence from the bar supporting. I repeat, Mr. Speaker, we owe the Deputy President the most basic decency. I object.
Senior Counsel Orengo, those amendments, are they contained?
They're contained, they're all here.
And refer to the document.
Volume 4. I am not referring, because if I've got to refer to every document, will take a lot of time, and I have only 30 minutes. If you look at volume 4 of this document on public participation, from page
Volume 4 of the National Assembly.
Of the National Assembly.
Pages?
Pages 114 to... Yes. And in fact, this page is also called Tend the Will. And the Deputy President is the one who is relying on this will. The death certificate is contained on page 119. And it shows the only person who attended the deceased, the brother of the Deputy President at that time, was his daughter, was the only person present. And then there's the will. And in the documents on page 128, and this is why I was raising this matter, on page 128, there's a letter by Mr. Madenge and Mr. Njoroge Rigeru, who together with Mr. Rigathi Gachagua were the joint will executors. And they're complaining about the conduct and action of the Deputy President as an executor of the will and a family member of the late Nderitu Gachagua. On page 129, paragraph 8, there, and it says, from bank statements to this, for this account seen by us, you transferred some funds from these accounts to other persons as follows. On the date when Nderitu Gachagua died on the 24th, the deputy president was already withdrawing money. On the day he died, and that day when he died, he was there only with his daughter. And then they say on the 19th of May, 2017, again, another money was withdrawn and paid to Mrs. Oamunyuro Investment Limited. This story, you will find it in the documentation. And part of it is what Mr. Njomo was saying.
Counsel for Deputy President, just have your seat. When your time comes, you'll be able to make the rebuttals. Proceed, Senior Counsel.
How many minutes do I have?
Mr. Speaker, I respect your direction. I'm willing to take a seat right away, but just to point out something. The document you are being referred to is the document you held in abeyance because it was given to us later for purposes of our consideration. That's number one. Number two, Mr. Speaker, you remember that my learned colleague talked about how my client traveled to London, how without talking to any doctor. These are factual claims, Mr. Speaker, that are just coming from the bar. Mr. Speaker, number three, the opening statement speaks to the motion and the grounds in the motion. I beseech this House direct that parties restrict themselves to the motion and the grounds in the motion. The facts you are now being referred to have no basis in the motion and the grounds in the motion, unless Senior Counsel, His Excellency Governor Orengo, can draw your attention to any ground in the motion that those facts are not addressing. I repeat what I said earlier, Mr. Speaker. The ruling is yours. We owe it to the Deputy President and the integrity of our check and balances institutions to maintain basic decency in these proceedings. I rest.
In fact,
Counsel, I cannot tell you how you're going to make your opening statements. If you're going outside the allegations, that's up to you. The senators are here listening, and they'll be able to make the necessary decision at the end of it. Now, Senior Counsel Orengo, there's an averment that you've made that the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, on a certain date that you indicated, traveled to London.
Yes. The evidence is
his sick brother.
Yes.
And on the side of the sickbed, he made his brother sign a will. Is that contained anywhere in the documents from the National Assembly?
My Lord, Mr. Speaker, if you look at volume 4 from the pages that I indicated, right from page 113, it shows what flight he took, at what time, a British Airways flight on the 16th, and arrived in London on the 17th. The only business that comes out from that document and his documents is that he got a will signed, and there is no further evidence of his activities in London until 24th, when the only activity in which he didn't participate was to be present when his brother died in London. But all this I'm saying in relation to the allegations that we have against the Deputy President.
Mr. Speaker, sir.
Counsel, ordinarily, no objections are raised during the 30 minutes of the opening statement. Ordinarily. I have tried to accommodate, but now you're stretching my generosity a bit too far. Allow Senior Counsel Orengo to conclude, In your opening statement, you may choose
Now,
to make a rejoinder.
what I want to conclude is this. From what I've said, from the way his brother's accounts were raided, that was continued to the time when All Life Guidance was acquired for a sale by proxy of 412 million shillings. He bought property in Nyeri, the outspan and treetops for an amount exceeding 800 million shillings. And we're saying part of that money was not money coming from him, and evidence will show that he was raiding monies that truly belonged to the estate of his late brother to acquire property. If that is not an offense by law, these were proceeds of crime committed by the deputy president to acquire property. And to drive this point home, the judgment by Justice Minor, which is also part of the record, where she made a determination, and that judgment stands, that the 200 million shillings that was found in an account with a financial institution, in excess of 200 million shillings, were proceeds of crime. And that 200 million shillings, again, the documentation here, if you look at it and we show it in evidence, was the same money that was used to acquire treetops and Aberdares as part of the money that his sons were able to use to acquire those properties. So we are saying that the acquisition of these properties came out of criminal conduct, and all the particulars of the criminal conduct is found in the documents that were presented before the Senate. Now, Mr. Speaker, I think that it is critical that we look at the authority of the office of the Deputy President vis-a-vis that of the President, the doctrine of collective responsibility. And I showed why the office of the Deputy President is so important in carrying certain functions so long as he lives to the true spirit of the Constitution. Many times, and the incidents have been shown, acts of insubordination, like when he issued a press statement in Mombasa after the president himself had issued a statement that went contrary, absolute insubordination to the president, who is his boss. And if really one can talk about insubordination, that was an act of insubordination.